Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this webinar about professional communication in live chat support. So, first to introduce myself, my name is Pascal. I'm one of the guys who started Userlike. And Userlike is software to chat with your customers, either over your website or over mobile messaging apps like Facebook Messenger and Telegram. I've been in close touch with companies that offer chat support now for over around 6 years. And today I would like to share some of the best practices that I've seen companies like Mercedes, Daimler, and TeamViewer apply. So whether you're running an online shop by yourself or maybe you're managing a support team, this webinar should give you some valuable insights and learnings. I hope you enjoy. So what's on the menu? First, I want to compare the most important channels, which are email, phone, and live chat. So these are the most important channels for support. There are some fundamental differences between these channels, and it's these differences that govern the best way of communicating on them. It's, for example, a common mistake to communicate on chat like you would communicate when you were doing email or phone support. And these differences between these channels, they also clarify for which purposes live chat is best suited. After that, I would like to cover some fundamental concepts in communication. So some communication basics. And these basics are important to know about to understand how to best offer support via chat. Then after that, I would like to dive into some best practices specifically for live chat communication. Many of these tips will also be valuable for email, for phone, and even in face-to-face support. But they are especially important for live chat because of the specific nature of live chat, which we will discuss. And then as a bonus, I also will discuss the user-like way. So these are what we consider to be the 8 core principles of good customer support. Basically, we've developed these principles through first principle thinking. So we thought very hard and deeply about what makes a support experience good or bad. So we've looked at our customers applying different customer support principles. We've just thought about it a lot, and also we've dug up quite some research on customer service. And then the goal is that you will be able to apply these insights to chat, but basically you will be able to apply these principles to any support interaction, maybe even in your personal life. So let's get started. The channel comparison. So this is about the fundamental differences between the main support channels, which are phone, email, and live chat. So first, let's quickly touch on the realization that customer support has two sides. So on the one hand, customer interest, and on the other hand, company interest. And sometimes these interests overlap, and when they do, that's beautiful, but oftentimes they don't. And the frustrations that we often see in customer service from customers as well as from customer service agents often result from those areas in which the interests don't overlap. So what are the customer's interests? Well, first, customer service should be fast. Customer service should be convenient. It should be accurate. It should be more or less personal. That really depends on the service or on the product, I should say. And it should be friendly, always, basically. But we will dive into these interests deeper later on. Then, what are the company interests? Well, first off, happy customers. So that basically means to cover all of the above points, but also it means happy employees. At least you see that the companies that excel in customer service, they also have a priority for happy employees. So when your employees are happy, you tend to get happy customers as well. And Another priority for practically all companies is to be cost efficient. You have quite many service gurus out there that complain about too many companies having a cost focus. But for sure, customer service should also be cost efficient because even if you have a great, outstanding service, what's the point if it's eating up all your profits, right? So, with that in mind, let's dive into the differences between the support channels. So, we use this graph to analyze the differences. And as you can see, it divides the dominant communication channels of today in 4 planes. So on the X axis, you see whether the channel is text-based or voice-based. On the Y axis, you see whether the channel is synchronous or asynchronous, which basically means is the conversation in real time or not. So with synchronous communication, the consumption of information coincides with the production of information. In an asynchronous communication, the consumption of the information happens later than the production. We can see here, for example, that phone is synchronous and it's voice-based. Voicemail, on the other hand, is asynchronous, so the message is consumed later, and it's voice-based. And actually, it's funny to see that voicemail is making quite a comeback due to WhatsApp and their voice messages. Then we have email and social media. Both of these are text-based and asynchronous. So the messages are read later, so after they are produced. Then social media has this little extra, which is that support over social media is basically a public conversation. So email is private and social media is public. And that's also the reason why if you really want to get a fast response from a company, it's a good idea to ask them on social media because there the world is watching and it tends to have a positive effect on the speed of the service delivery. And then we see live chat, and it is text-based and synchronous. At least it can be synchronous. When it's not synchronous, we call it messaging, which is what you do over messaging apps like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. And yeah, these different characteristics of these channels explain the strength of each channel. So synchronous channels, they tend to be more personal. And also they are good for instant gratification. So for example, if you have an online shop and you want to boost conversion, then it's good to offer synchronous support options because you want to be able to catch those customers that are looking for instant gratification, that are about to make a buy. They just have a quick little question, and yeah, you want to either through phone or through chat want to be able to convince them. Then asynchronous is less personal, which, by the way, can also be an advantage, both for customers and for the company. So less personal, for example, is good for more private products. And for a company, from a logistical perspective, it's good to spread out service peaks, let's say. So if there's a service peak, with instant channels, you need to equip your support team with plenty of manpower. And if you can spread out, then that is less necessary. Voice-based channels, they are also very personal. And through that, they're also good to provide more context. For example, it's rather safe to make a joke over the phone. It's not so safe to make a joke via email or via live chat because, there are many ways you can misinterpret it. Then text-based is less personal, which again can also be an advantage. And another advantage is that it offers instant documentation. So it allows you to read back on what was said, to search the transcript, to share it, for example, with your colleagues. So that also offers quite some advantages. So now let's dive a bit deeper into chat, which is unsurprisingly the hero of this story. So chat is basically a mix between phone and email. So it is real time like phone, but it is text based like email. And yeah, because of this, the intimacy level is also in between phone and email. It is maybe not as personal as phone, but as you might know from personal experience, it's a rather informal channel. Then, unlike the other channels, it is on site, which is a big advantage for e-commerce, basically. So it's not necessary to pause or to stop your website experience to get support via live chat. And unlike phone, parallel service is possible. So one agent can quite easily chat with multiple customers at the same time. At Userlike, for example, one agent can chat with up to 10 customers at the same time. But yeah, that takes quite some skills. So we always recommend our customers to start with a max of 3, which you can adjust in our software. So here we see it in a nice overview. So just to clarify, phone and email are definitely not bad channels. So a lot of it is about customer preferences. And many customers, they still prefer email or phone. But for businesses that are operating mainly online, chat is quite undeniably the optimal channel for support. All right, now let's move on to some basic communication concepts and the impact that they have on chat communication. So again, these concepts, they apply to all media of communication, but as we will see, they apply especially to live chat. So the first one is the Iceberg Principle. So I bet that all of you probably know the iceberg image. So basically, it says that 90% of our communication happens below the surface. So it's not what we say, it's how we say it. The 90% is actually it's contested. It's hard to say, but it's fair enough to say that most of our day-to-day communication is actually non-verbal. And when you then look at live chat, you see that it's 100% verbal. So there's no feedback besides the text. Not just live chat, by the way, that's the same for email. So what becomes much more important is how you actually phrase your text. And yeah, we have some other techniques which we'll explain. But basically, it becomes very important how you phrase it. Then the next is the negativity effect. So this is the tendency, the very human tendency to interpret any message that is ambiguous in a negative way. So for example, when you are texting somebody, you're sending somebody a message and you see they've read it, but you're not getting an answer. So I used to think that it was just me, but it's everybody. Like the first thought that you get is they must be ignoring me. Well, it's probably much more likely that they are just busy, right? And this is a negativity effect, and it happens everywhere, and it happens especially in written communication, and that's because yeah, written communication is much more ambiguous because you're missing the 90%, the 90% below the surface part. You also see that people who are very confident, for example, basically they are very confident because they have conquered this negativity effect. So they just assume that everything is positive, everything is good. But there are not many people out there like that. So then the next is processing fluency. So how easy is it for the message to be absorbed and to be processed? So this depends on a couple of things. It depends on the sender. It depends on the receiver. So in this case, the customer. But it also depends on the environment. So if you are in a very busy room, of course, it's harder to get a message across properly. All right. So these are just some theoretical foundations, if you will. With those concepts in mind, Let's now get down to the best practices in live chat communication. So the first one is KISS, which means keep it short, simple, and sweet. So by keeping things short and simple, you make things easier to process. The original form is with two times the S, and we've added one, sweet. And that's because shortness can also be mistaken for rudeness or for disinterest. And to counter that, you add a little bit of sweetness. So make it conversational. It's the next one, which means make it like a face-to-face conversation. A chat is more or less like a face-to-face conversation. A common mistake we see is that support teams that are used to doing email support, they don't switch to live chat, and then they write an answer to a customer, which is basically a long email. And if you're doing this, then you're missing out on all the benefits that live chat has to offer. So when you make it conversational, you make it more personal and more easy to process. Use easy sentences. More or less, if you're into consuming audio content, like a podcast instead of an audiobook. Try to avoid also jargon and buzzwords, because your customer might not know them, right? Also, use confirmation signals as you would in a normal conversation. Actually, this one is quite important because in a normal conversation, you have the face of your conversation partner in front of you, and you know whether they are listening or not, whether they are getting what you're saying. In chat, you might be writing a long message, sending out different messages, but you don't have the face of the other side in front of you. So it's good if you're doing chat support to send short little nudges, basically saying, yes, okay, I see. Then the next tip is to phrase things positively. So this is also, this comes down to the negativity bias. So because of the negativity bias, it's good to always phrase yourself positively. If it is necessary to say something negative, it's good to then follow up with something positive. So, for example, instead of saying, no, that's not possible, you could try saying, no, unfortunately, that is not possible, but what we can do is dot, dot, dot. So, it's especially also short negative messages that are vulnerable to the negativity bias. So if somebody asks, I was wondering whether this is possible. No. Okay. Well, that doesn't sound so nice, does it? So just avoid overly short sentences which could be easily misinterpreted. Then emoji and exclamation marks. Emoji and exclamation marks are often interpreted as unprofessional. However, when they are used wisely, they are a powerful tool to sort of liven up your written communication. So it helps to convey some of that 90% that would normally be below the surface. And especially in live chat, I mean, you can also, I think, use them in email support. But especially in live chat, which is an informal channel, they are powerful tools. One thing to say is that, yeah, in professional settings like support, it is recommended to stick to the emoji that everybody is familiar with. So don't go too exotic there, and don't overuse them either. A good tip that we always give our customers is to use social mimicking. So perhaps you're talking to perhaps the customer on the other side is an elderly gentleman who is more from the old school way of communicating, and might not be so much into emoji, or it is a 16-year-old who basically breathes emoji, and you should just mimic a bit what the other side is doing. Then positive outcries. So this is another tool to counter the negativity bias. And these are outcries that create a positive, friendly vibe. Um, Instead of saying, I understand, for example, you can say, great, all clear. Um, do keep it real and don't overdo it. Then structured explaining. So structured explaining is a technique to benefit processing fluency. So, for example, let's say you are remembering a phone number. This becomes much easier if you actually break the phone number down. So instead of having 10 digits, you break it down into chunks of 4 digits. So 9018, 3092, 480. It makes it much easier than to remember the whole sequence in a row. And that's the same with communication. So if you deliver information in a clear structure, it allows your listener to basically box it properly and to follow your logic as you stack one box upon another. So some useful structures that I like to use always is the first one is the what, so what, now what. So this is actually my favorite one because you can use it in practically any situation. For example, to when you introduce somebody at a party, you can say, "What? That is John. So what? He is a football fan like you. Now what? Let me introduce him to you." So it's very clear, short, and very actionable. Let's say, because it always leads to the so what, to an action, and that's what we want. The next structure is the problem solution benefit. So this is a famous one to persuade people. For example, when you're in sales, just to give an example, the problem, your customers are having a hard time finding information on your website. The solution, Userlike, allows you to answer questions without your customers having to leave your site. And the benefit, this will lead to happier customers and more conversions. So again, it's just a clear structure and also for yourself to guide yourself in your explaining. Then the feature advantage benefit. So this is also a popular sales technique. And it's especially useful to describe products. So for example, when we apply it to Userlike again, the feature is Userlike has a register form. The advantage, the register form allows you to capture user information to follow up later. The benefit, this results in more leads and more deals. All right, then the next tip, use a real operator picture. This is also to counter the negativity effect because many people, when they are receiving chat support, they are actually unsure whether they are actually chatting with a chatbot or with a human. So, assuming that you are a human, I would really recommend you to use a real profile picture. This creates a more personal connection and gives basically a face to your website as well, which is a benefit. It allows your customers to know who they are talking to. Actually, at Userlike, we also offer the option to use operator aliases and to use stock images for your operator picture. We implemented this feature because it's necessary to adhere to the regulations of certain countries and companies, like data privacy regulations. But our advice is always to show who you are. Then respond quickly. Again, this goes to the negativity effect. So a quick response fights the ambiguity that the customer might have, that they might not be sure whether someone is actually behind the chat. So especially important here is the first response time. So a customer starts a chat, sends a message, they are not sure, is there actually somebody on the other line? So especially for the first response, it's very important to send a fast message. So, for example, we use a chat macro for this, which is like predefined canned messages, which makes it easy to send out a complete response fast. For example, just hi, my name is Pascal. How may I help you? Um, all right, those were our live chat best practices. Now, the user-like way, which are our 8 principles of good customer service. So again, we developed these from first principle thinking to cover the question, what is it that makes a support interaction good or bad? And yeah, I hope it helps you to think about ways to improve your service. At least it helped us to think, and it keeps on helping us to think about ways that we can improve our live chat situation. So the first principle of good customer support is speed, which basically is how fast as a customer can you get an answer. And especially the first response time, like covered before, is important. It shows that you are being heard. Um, Also, it ties back to the tip we gave before of sending short messages and not email-like messages. So just give short. This gives short waiting times, and also another benefit from sending short messages instead of long emails is that it allows the customer to course correct you, basically. So maybe you misinterpreted the question of the customer, and if you send out a whole email that's quite clumsy, if you start answering the request or the question in parts, then it allows the customer to say, no, wait, that's not what I meant. I meant actually this. Then principle number 2, accuracy. So of course, speed is only good as long as you can maintain accuracy. So it's worse to give wrong information than to give no information at all. Ways to get this right is, for example, good training, making use of a proper knowledge base, or like features that we have a user like these canned messages, which I mentioned before, chat macros. They allow you to get things right always. Then principle number 3, clarity. Basically, this also ties back to the above of keeping things short, simple, and structured. And here, try to remember it's more a podcast, not an audiobook. Then transparency. Um, yeah, transparency is so often such an easy fix, but it is often forgotten as well. So for example, instead of just telling the customer that you are following a certain rule, um, also explain why the rule is the way it is. So just explaining, for example, that if you would extend the warranty date, you could explain that if you would do that, then the company would not be profitable and it wouldn't be able to survive. And for example, this already puts the customer in a different frame of mind than just saying, no, that's not possible, it's against the rules. Basically, it also shows the customer that you are taking him or her seriously by giving an explanation. Also, what I would often do if I would offer chat support is to tell the visitor what I was going to do. So instead of just saying, for example, the customer asks a question and I don't know the answer immediately, but I do know where I should look that up. So instead of saying, yes, just a moment, which is ambiguous for the customer, it is better to say, one moment, let me just look that up for you. Or instead of just saying, we will get back to you, give a bit more explanation. For example, saying, I will now create a ticket and forward it to our specialist. And this gives to the customer the image like I'm really being taken care of. And they know what is happening, so it calms them down. Then the next principle is availability. So this has to do with customer effort. Basically, how easy is it to reach you or to solve the problem or question that I have. So if a customer can reach you 24/7, that's a big plus. Um, of course, that's also quite expensive to 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 offer 24/7 support. But what is important to realize here that it is generally more important that the customer can leave his question somewhere easily than it is for him or her to get a response right away. So just having a contact form on your website, for example, that already makes you much more available, even though the first time you will get back to the customer will be the next morning. The principle of empowerment. So, yeah, this is basically about helping customers to help themselves. So, we always advise companies to set up an FAQ or a self service section. There's just a big chunk of your customers that prefers to figure things out for themselves. So it's also important to cater to this group. And then friendliness. So whoever receives a service wants a positive experience. I don't know of any example where this is not the case. So there are many support interactions that leave the customer angry and frustrated, and that's such a waste. And when it comes to chat, sticking to these core principles, and for example, using a smiling picture for your operator avatar and using emoji and exclamation marks in your conversational chat, all of these make for a more friendly experience. And then finally, efficiency. So, good service is sustainable service. So, basically, the challenge here of customer support, it lies in aligning the customer's interests, which are speed, quality, availability, with the company's interest and the employees' interest, which are good working conditions and cost efficiency. A solution for this is technology. So actually, chat is a support channel that makes it possible to align these interests, because live chat is cost efficient, because unlike phone, it allows you to offer chat support to multiple customers at the same time, so parallel chats. Um, and also it allows you to make use of the documentation, to read up on the chat history, to easily forward it to other colleagues, etc. At the same time, for the customer, it offers increased speed, increased availability, and less effort. Also, for employees, it's less tiring to do chat support than it is to do phone support. So just imagine doing 30 phone calls a day and then compare that to doing 30 chats a day. I mean, 30 chats a day, that's basically what everybody is doing already these days, just through apps like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger. It's not a big deal. Also, this is actually a theme that comes back in the interviews that we do with customers. So oftentimes we see that at first the support teams or the members, individual members of a support team, they are a bit hesitant about chat because they see it as an additional challenge, basically. And then luckily we see that very quickly they grow to love it, because basically chat makes life easier for them as well. And at the same time, they notice that their customers are also happier and yeah, in a better mood, basically. So everybody's happy, which is a good thing. So that was it, the webinar on professional live chat support. I thank you so much for your attention. I really hope it will help you in offering superb chat support. If you don't have a chat solution yet, check out userlike.com. So we've built our solution according to these 8 principles of customer support. And we offer a free trial and a free version, and as well as some premium versions for larger support teams. So I think if you're looking for a live chat solution, yeah, we could be a good option for you. And if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to interact with you via the comment section below. So thanks a lot and have a great day.